gerrymandering within the Labour Party, jobs for the boys. The aspect to this that is around women of colour being treated in this way must be very worrying to everybody.
Dave, can you talk to me about Diane Abbott? I know that you're one of the affiliated unions that has written to Keir Starmer over his decision or indecision to select Diane Abbott as the candidate. Where do you stand now?
Well, we were in a position where we supported the need for Diana to have the whip restored. We've been in that position for some time. So we made our views known about that, because I don't think it would be acceptable in any situation that a sort of disciplined so-called case, an investigation, has gone on for as long as it did. So then when we heard that the whip had been restored, when it was first broken, you kind of thought, well, okay, that's a good outcome. And then obviously, subsequently, we've heard what has now become a complete and utter mess, and a very, what looks on the face of it, an unbelievable sort of situation that Labour has created itself, not Diane Abbott. And I think it's wrong. And, at a moment when Labour should really be focusing on winning an election where, likes of us and our members, the working people of this country, I don't think we've ever needed a change in our lifetime as much as a change we need now. For Labour to get into that position is either one or two things: complete incompetence on their part, or it's a deliberate act. Now, I don't know enough to know which of those it is, but it's just not right. And even at this point, they should do the right thing, and they should allow Diana to stand as a Labour MP, and they should end this. What's equally worrying is obviously it's happening at a time when we're now seeing a number of people who are deliberately being blocked, which looks on the face of it, gerrymandering within the Labour Party, jobs for the boys, because obviously those people that are being targeted are predominantly women, it seems, not exclusively. And obviously the aspect to this that is around women of colour being treated in this way must be very worrying to everybody who, doesn't want to see sort of racism happening in society. Now, again, I don't know all the details. I don't know all of the you only see what you see, but it's wrong. And, I would suggest that even under Tony Blair's government, when he said he wanted a broad church, I think there was an element of the broad church was allowed. If you compare it with when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, you would say that the broad church was definitely allowed. Maybe some might say to Jeremy's detriment in that sense. But basically, it's wrong. And, when something's wrong, you've got to say it's wrong. And that's where kind of we are at the moment on it, where I am.
There's a lot of talk over the last couple of days, particularly with Faiza Shaheen last night, and of course Diane, that socialists are being expunged from the party. Now, you represent a union, you represent the workers, and arguably you would be described as socialists. I mean, certainly by many strands of the media. So, do you think there's going to be a place for you after the election if it carries on the way that it has?
Well, let me turn to Faiza's situation. Anybody who saw that interview last night would just be appalled, because it had to be one of the most painful things to sit and watch somebody who I know quite well, shared platforms with before, who is without doubt an excellent candidate for Labour, somebody who reversed all the trends in the last election because of her ability to campaign locally, and her support locally, more importantly. And I think she was nailed on to win that seat. For some of the things that, she apologised last night on that. But when you hear her explanation as to why she did what she did, which, I have a real problem with some of these attacks, because they're like things that other people do, and there's evidence that other people have done it, and they don't get treated in the same way. So there doesn't seem to be any sort of standard that's consistent. And that's the worrying thing. Now, so, on Faiza's situation, we've certainly made our views known as well to the party, and we think it's completely and utterly wrong. Now, where does that leave us as a trade union? Well, if you look around at the moment, we're in a place, we affiliate to the Labour Party. It's not a disaffiliation issue for me personally, because we're involved in major issues on a whole range of things that are about protecting workers, protecting our members, and it's important that we continue to have a political voice. So I'm going to be honest with you, it's not something that would make me personally, it's a union decision, not my decision, but it wouldn't make me personally disaffiliate from the Labour Party. But it does fill me with sadness, and it fills me with a lot of sort of uneasiness, really, about what's actually going on. And I would urge the people in Labour who might be into factionalism on a scale that we've not seen before, and maybe worse, to seriously look at themselves and think about what they're doing, because people don't vote in the end for parties that are not united. And whatever's happened here, that it's their own reason, it's their own failings that have created these situations, in my view, or in the way they've dealt with it. I'm not saying that they've created something that wasn't needed to be looked at. That's a matter for the processes, as they keep saying. But it is a mess. There's no other way of saying it. And that's at the very best you could call it. I think you could suggest, subject to what plays out, it could be quite worse than that, couldn't it?
Do you think that there's a risk here as well, this issue that we've had over the last couple of days, compounding with the watering down or potential watering down of the New Deal for workers? Do you think it's got the potential here to turn the typical Labour voter away from the party?
Well, I'm sure on its own, it will turn some people away from voting for Labour. To what numbers, I don't know. But clearly people are voicing that view. Predominantly, they will be probably people on the left of the Labour Party. There'll also be, people who are voting in the constituencies who know these candidates as excellent candidates, who have stood up for them, who will want to stand alongside them. That's a natural thing that will take place. Difficult to put numbers on that. I don't sort of see the same position on the New Deal for workers, because I actually think the package that's on offer under any period of time in recent Labour, recent political history, is without doubt still the most transformational package that's been on offer at a general election. And, I want to be out there campaigning on that as a really strong policy for working people. And I would have thought Labour should be out there campaigning on that and their other policies that they want to push forward. And instead, unbelievably, from what I've seen, and I've been in some meetings today, but from the amount of times our phone's gone to do interviews like this, that the news agenda is being dominated by something else. I think it's incredibly naive to get themselves into these situations, and they've got to find the right way out of it, and they've got to treat those individuals with more dignity and respect than they have been so far.
Do you think that it's almost, when you say it's naive, do you mean because it's domineering the news agenda? Is that why? Do you think it's a gift to the Conservatives?
Well, of course it is. Yeah, I think that when you get I can't think who it was now, but somebody the other day who said, was it Jeremy Hunt or somebody who said, Keir Keir Starmer can't deal with Diane Abbott. What chance has he got of dealing with Putin? Now, I'm not saying that that was the right thing to say at all, but you can see how the opposition are dealing with it in a way that just keeps it on the news agenda.
Mm.
So therefore, it is detracting from the election campaign. It's been, you know, almost either the first or second item on now. How's that happened? Somebody's got to ask, how's it happened? And I think we'll be asking that question in more detail with the Labour Party. We'll also be asking, perhaps it ain't the first time that things get leaked, and what are the Labour Party doing about that? Now, they may well say, I don't know, they may well say, well, there's rogue people in their team. Well, there's ways of investigating that. Therefore, they need to step up and do it. Obviously, Faiza's case is a little bit different, and one or two of the others, where they're saying there's a selection panel of the NEC. But yeah, I think even that needs to be looked at a lot more. And maybe people need to make the connection between, those who are being deselected. And I think from what I've seen, there's an accusation of jobs for the boys in those who are then being selected. And I think, it ain't a good look, is it?
Mm. I mean, you can't.
If you delve deeper, it doesn't seem to be a good look in terms of the broad church position.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, you can't believe it's down to leaks, though. I mean, we heard that the inquiry into Diane Abbott concluded back in February of last year. So this isn't just down to leaks, is it?
No, I'm saying what you hear that someone's leaked it. I tend to agree with you. It's very difficult to see how people can keep leaking things when there's a backstory to this that appears to be much fuller than what's being said. So it's not right, is it?
But all the unions, you're behind Diane. You would like to see her selected.
I think Diane deserves that opportunity. She's had the whip restored, and that should take place. Yes.